Hello there, my friends. Hi, good to see you. Thank you so much. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Marvin Kanaka. If you're seeing me for the first time, big ups to all of you new subscribers, particularly new subscribers. My hats off also to subscribers who have been with me from the day of inception. But I welcome you new subscribers, and the reason I mention that is because I'm extremely humbled by your kind gesture to subscribe to this channel. And so I want to emphasize that we still need more subscribers to be able to make this channel grow from strength to strength, and also to be able to help in creating a bigger impact. There's a lot of work to do, a lot of information to actually siphon through, to dig through, to be able to get to the concrete truths. All of us are searching, and part of the purpose of this channel is to search truth. So I'm really, really grateful for all of you new subscribers. Welcome on board, and I know that we're going to be good friends. You're going to help me become a better presenter and a better content creator. So please do like, as usual, and share these videos and allow them to go far and wide. Also send in comments. On this particular presentation, I actually need a lot of comments, and I'm grateful for the comments that I've received in the past concerning the videos I've done in the past. That's really, really awesome to see. Today, focus on David Livingstone. I don't know how many of you know much about David Livingstone, but David Livingstone was a Scottish missionary. He was actually a European missionary from Scotland, trained over in Scotland and sent to Africa on a mission to save Africans, or the people of Africa. So the question we're asking today is, was David Livingstone really a salvation missionary? Keyword salvation. Was David Livingstone a salvation missionary for Africans? Now, this is an important question in light of the fact that we are learning more and more. For those that didn't know, I also at one point didn't know that Africans already knew God. Africans already had a system of being in a relationship with God. So what really did David Livingstone come to save the people from? All right, it's a key question. Also, this question is very, very important in the wake of developments that are happening, not just in Africa, but also worldwide. There is such an awakening and an influx of knowledge that is pouring in. People are coming across much more information and knowledge, if you like, things that were previously hidden. And in the near future, we're coming to talk about knowledge or books or resources that seem to have been hidden in the Vatican. Just one of those places where information has been hidden. We need to come back and talk about that. So there's really a lot to talk about. Now, for those of you who don't know much about David Livingstone, for me, my search into the life of David Livingstone really started could be about 6 months ago, when I was working on my book, White Legacy. And one day I just woke up and it dawned upon me, was this man really on a mission to save Africans or turn them to God? Was he really doing that? And this is very interesting because of the fact that, like I said earlier on, first of all, Africans already knew God. They had their own system of relationship with God. And we'll go into detail in terms of what that was called. But so he comes at a time, and then when I woke up and I was asking myself this question, it seemed to me all of a sudden that his coming to Africa coincided with the slave trade and the colonization of Africa. So he came to Africa at a time when the transatlantic slave trade was in operation and Africa was transitioning into colonization. So is this just a coincidence? So I picked up a phone and I called a friend of mine who I know is very well informed and keeps up to date with information. And I said, hey man, I just had a thought. And this was just a thought. It wasn't provoked by anything else. It was just a thought that struck me. And I called him, I said, have you ever thought about David Livingstone? Was he really a salvation missionary? And then the first thing my friend said was, well, there are some people who claim that he was the precursor to colonization. That means he came to pave way for colonization. And as soon as he said that, I said, bingo. I think that's what it is. Now, without doing any much research at the time, it just seemed to me to make sense why he came. And then as I started to looking up stuff on his life, there were questions that have not been answered up until now. And I'm presenting these questions to you, all of you that are listening. Send me ideas, send me comments, send me answers, because I really want to get to the bottom of it. Because so far, my conclusion is that he wasn't a salvation missionary. So far, unless information can prove otherwise. So, and I began to try and find out who were his spiritual sons. Because in the Bible, when you read about people that are missionaries or are on a mission of salvation, they, like Paul, Peter, they raised sons that continued with that work of saving people and turning them to Christ. So who are David Livingstone's sons? All right. Now, those of you that need a little bit more information, David Livingstone, I think, would be most popular in three countries, which would be Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi. And I will let you know why in the next clip. I mean, in a few moments' time, I'll fill you in terms of why those are the areas where he was most popular. Now, for the sake of more information, those of you that may be in the dark concerning David Livingstone, at some point, I don't know about now, but when we were in school, we were taught that he was the one that discovered the Victoria Falls. The Victoria Falls is in Zambia and Zimbabwe. So it's right at the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe. And then also interesting thing that I found out about David Livingstone as I started to do more research and reading up on his life is the fact that the person that succeeded David Livingstone after he died was David Livingstone died in 1873, and his successor was Cecil Rhodes. So again, is that just a coincidence? Because Cecil Rhodes, if you didn't know, Cecil Rhodes became the colonial master of these same three countries, which is Malawi, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So at the time that he became the colonial master of those three regions, Zimbabwe became known as Southern Rhodesia, named after Cecil Rhodes, Rhodesia. And then Zambia became Northern Rhodesia, again named after Rhodes, Cecil Rhodes, so Rhodesia. So Zimbabwe was Southern Rhodesia, and Zambia became known as Northern Rhodesia. I'm not sure why Malawi was named a little bit differently, because Malawi was named Nyasaland. All right. Now, the coming in of David Livingstone into the continent, he actually entered through South Africa. I believe it was Cape Town, where he met up with Robert Moffat, who was another missionary coming to Africa to save Africans. All right. So apparently, David Livingstone came at the invitation of Robert Moffat. So having arrived in South Africa, he was apparently sent to the north, or to the central part of the country, which is north of South Africa, and that's how he ended up in the region around Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, and those are the places that he explored the most. He did go into parts of Mozambique, I believe Angola, Namibia as well, but most of his work was done around those three countries. And some of the things that are not mentioned about David Livingstone is that he wasn't successful on his own. He was actually helped by local people. There's a local person, I think, from Malawi, who is Abdullah Susi, Mozambique, I beg your pardon. Abdullah Susi was from Mozambique. And then there was James Chuma from Malawi. Those two helped him greatly to explore Africa. And then, but in Zambia itself, even the discovery of the Victoria Falls, this man was helped by quite a number of people. But the biggest one that helped him the most was Chief Sekeleti of the Tokalea people in Livingstone of Zambia. Okay, Chief Sekeleti. So all of these personalities are not mentioned in with regards to the success that David Livingstone had in Africa. But also another interesting thing is that some of the resources that you read tell you that the people that helped him the most were Arab traders. Okay, were Arab traders. Now it's interesting that this man who was a missionary to save lives was helped by Arab traders. And then if you've read up the transatlantic slave trade histories or chronicles, you find that in many cases, the capture of black people into slavery was helped by Arabs. So again, interesting that there's these coincidences that kind of raise question marks. So it then leaves you wondering, because again, there's another important issue that we need to touch on. Okay, because we know that in Africa, Christianity was used to indoctrinate people and make them become submissive to white people and eventually to slave masters. And there's a lot of talk right now going on social media about what Christianity has done to Africa. How Christianity was a very, very big vehicle used to colonize and to take Africans into slavery. So there's a big debate right now about whether Africans still need to align themselves with Christianity. It's a valid question to ask, actually. So there's this conversation going on. So what I'm presenting to you right now here simply adds to that conversation, because this now becomes a very, very important part of the many conversations that we're supposed to be having currently, in terms of thinking about what is the way forward for Black people, Africans in the diaspora, African Americans, in relation to what now is about to happen with Africa. The good things, the rising of Africa, which is really a divine appointment that we're seeing in this time. Very good time that we're living in, like I've said before. But again, key questions that need answers quickly and desperately. So once again, reminding you, please converse with me, send in those comments, and to answer some of these questions, let me know what you know. Like I said, David Livingstone's life is really shrouded in uncertainty. There's just a few things that are clear and sure, but the key areas of his life, they are really, really, really just hanging in the air, and we want answers to that. I've already made my conclusion, like I said, but I'm open to changing my mind about this man, and that's why I'm making this conversation available to all of us. Keep in mind, I'm asking the question, was this man really a salvation missionary? Now, anyone can be a missionary. Missionary can mean anything. Missionary, for me, missionary is just a person that's on a mission. You're a missionary. But the question here, the full question is, was he a salvation missionary? Was he a man sent by God to go and save Africans? And did he do it? All right. So David Livingstone arrived in Africa, in Cape Town in South Africa, in 1841. Okay. So that's where he started from. David Livingstone actually came with his wife. I can't remember very clearly whether he started having children when he was in Africa or he had them before. I do know at least once his wife was pregnant while on missions in Africa. And one of the things that I've read up is that David Livingstone actually was not a good father. That's one of the things that I've read up. That's what I've come across in some of my reading about his life. He was not a good father. And it sounds to me that there were issues actually in the marriage. I don't know whether it was because the wife didn't really want him to be in Africa or became uncomfortable at some point. I don't know. But I also know that David Livingstone came from a very, very poor background in Scotland. He actually came from a very, very, very poor background. And we know part of the history of Europe is that a lot of these explorers that were coming to Africa because they were very, very poor. They needed to make a livelihood. All right. Even in America itself, America did not receive the richest people or the most glamorous or the most educated people who went and founded the United States of America. They were actually from very poor backgrounds who were looking for greener pastures, okay, wanting to make something big of their lives. So now, isn't this interesting that as we discuss this, whether David Livingstone was truly a missionary or a salvation missionary, we now also eventually find out, and this is something that has been recently been revealed. I've come across this about a year ago, and I hope that you've come across it again. If you haven't, we're giving you the information right here. There's been recent revelation that the King of Belgium, I beg your pardon, King Leopold, who once ruled the Congo, which we're going to be talking about as well, who once ruled the Congo and terrorized the Congolese people, killed about 15 million Congolese people, would chop off their hands so they would not take anything, steal anything, or take some of the minerals. I don't even want to show you these pictures, but I believe that most of you probably have seen these pictures by now of Africans without hands because they were chopped off. But King Leopold once wrote a letter directing missionaries coming to Africa, white missionaries, European missionaries coming to Africa, giving them a guidance on how they should do the job of the missionary work in Africa. And all I can do is just let you see, read, and listen to this letter for yourself. It is stunning. And so for me to have woken up one day and realized and asked myself, was David Livingstone really a salvation missionary? And then now coming across this letter like 4 months later, it just sealed the issue for me. It just closed the case. He wasn't a missionary. He wasn't on a mission to save Africans. He was a precursor of colonization, a precursor of oppression. And like I said to you, we've heard now from different sources how Christianity and the Bible was used so effectively as an effective tool to oppress African people, to demean them and rob them of their identity. But I want you to listen to this letter. Take a look at this.
Letter from King Leopold II of Belgium to colonial missionaries, 1883. Reverends, fathers, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to fulfill is very delicate and requires much tact. You will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must inspire above all Belgium interests. Your principal objective in our mission in the Congo is never to teach the niggers to know God. This they know already. They speak and submit to a Mungu, one in Zambia, one in Zakomba, and what else I don't know. They know that to kill, to sleep with someone else's wife, to lie and to insult is bad. Have courage to admit it. You are not going to teach them what they know already. Your essential role is to facilitate the task of administrators and industrials, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in the way it will be the best to protect your interests in that part of the world. For these things, you have to keep watch on disinteresting our savages from the richness that is plenty in their underground. To avoid that, they get interested in it and make you murderous competition and dream one day to overthrow you. Your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your followers to love poverty, like, happier are the poor because they will inherit the heaven, and it's very difficult for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. You have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to affront us. I make reference to their mystic system and their war fetish warfare protection, which they pretend not to want to abandon, and you must do everything in your power to make it disappear. Your action will be directed essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revolt when the recommendation of the priest is contradictory to their parents' teachings. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends, who is the father of their soul. You must singularly insist on their total submission and obedience. Avoid developing the spirit in the schools. Teach students to read and not to reason. There, dear patriots, are some of the principles that you must apply. You will find many other books which will be given to you at the end of this conference. Evangelize the niggers so that they stay forever in submission to the white colonialists, so they never revolt against the restraints they are undergoing. Recite every day. Happy are those who are weeping because the kingdom of God is for them. Convert always the blacks by using the whip. Keep their women in 9 months of submission to work freely for us. Force them to pay you in sign of recognition goats, chicken, or eggs every time you visit their villages. And make sure that niggers never become rich. Sing every day that it's impossible for the rich to enter heaven. Make them pay tax each week at Sunday Mass. Use the money supposed for the poor to build flourishing business centers. Institute a confessional system, which allows you to be good detectives denouncing any black that has a different consciousness contrary to that of the decision maker. Teach the niggers to forget their heroes and to adore only ours. Never present a chair to a black that comes to visit you. Don't give him more than 1 cigarette. Never invite him for dinner even if he gives you a chicken every time you arrive at his house. The speech which shows the real intention of the Christian missionary journey in Africa was exposed to the world by Mr. Mukwani Bukoko, born in the Congo in 1915, and who in 1935, while working in the Congo, bought a second-hand Bible from a Belgian priest who forgot the speech in the Bible. Dr. Chidozie Okoro.
So there you are. So when revelations of this letter came out, there was a lot of talk. I believe that even right now, people are still having conversations about this letter on social media and different platforms. This letter, obviously, as you would expect, it didn't make headlines in mainstream media. It didn't. Okay? So, again, raising more questions. All right? But to wind up on the life of David Livingstone. David Livingstone died in 1873. He actually died in Chitambo village in the district of Chinsali in Zambia. So for me, those are places I'm very conversant with. So he died there. But after his death, I'm still having these questions. If any one of you knows, please send me information about who his spiritual sons are, how many churches he planted, what kind of congregations he had. I really want to know what he produced as a result of his mission as one that came to save Africans. This is going to be so, so important. One other piece of news about David Livingstone, one of the things that he's known for, if you haven't come across it, is that when he came across the Victoria Falls, and mind you, the original name of the Victoria Falls is Mosi-O-Tunya. Okay? Mosi-O-Tunya. Mosi-O-Tunya simply means the smoke that thunders. The smoke that thunders. The scene of this falls is amazing. You can never get tired of seeing this thing. It's just monumental. It's indescribable. And David Livingstone, when he saw this scene, he said, the scene so lovely must have been gazed upon even by angels in their flight. Scene so lovely must have been gazed by angels in their flight. Amazing. So that's one of the things that he's remembered for, that he's renowned for. So this discovery, and then went on to be named after the Queen of England, obviously, which is why it's called Victoria Falls. Okay. No idea why the authorities haven't thought about changing that name. I really don't know. And then obviously there's a monument of David Livingstone over at the Victoria Falls. So when you do go there, you'll find that monument of Livingstone himself. So that's really a little bit about David Livingstone. Not much to say, like I said, because there's a lot of questions for me that remain unanswered. So let me know, is it just a coincidence that the arrival of these white missionaries culminated in slavery and colonization? Could David Livingstone be an exception? Was he truly out to save people for Christ? And did he do it? That's the question I am asking. Personally, my mind is made up. I think that he was not what we've been told he was. He was sent by European entities, agencies, governments to spy on their behalf, to lay the ground. He was a precursor to colonization. That's what I think. I could be wrong, and I stand to be corrected. So let me hear from you. This is going to be an interesting conversation, and obviously I can come back and do part 2 after I get observations and comments from all of you that will be able to watch and listen to what I just presented there. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I will be back for more. For now, have a good day, and I'll see you on the next one. For now, let's go catch the day. Bye-bye.